that it landed on the side of the road, took control of her car. When she pulled off the car, the strange creatures came up to her car. That's the last thing she remembered. And I never could break through. And every time I tried to get her to break through, to remember what exactly happened after she saw these beings approaching her car, she would start groaning and clutching her arms and
Okay, I've got to stop you there. We got a break here, Laura. Okay,
all right.
Stick with me. We got 3 minutes. We'll be back. This is Michael Herzog, The American Awakening, with my special guest, Laura Knight Jadczyk. Stick with me. We'll be back in 3. republicbroadcasting.org. All right, we're back. Michael Herzog, The American Awakening, coming to you live from Round Rock, Texas. This is a short segment coming up, and I've got my special guest, Laura Knight Jadczyk, who is into a fantastic story. And I'll have you continue. We got about 5 minutes going, and then we have another break, Laura, but go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm trying to jam a whole lot into a short period of time. But anyhow,
no. Yeah, go ahead. This
poor woman was in so much pain every time I approached that subject of what happened to her after she'd stopped her car and these individuals approached it, that I literally had to take her out of hypnosis. And just so anybody who wants to know, I videotaped this session. And when I was later interviewed by the St. Pete Times journalist Tom French, he took the video to watch it, and he had it transcribed, and parts of this particular hypnosis session are included in a 20-page article that he wrote about this particular work I was doing, which is still online at the St. Pete Times Florida website.
Okay, now wait a minute. It's not on your website, correct?
No. This is a St. Pete Times special report that they did, and it's about a 20-page article.
Okay, well, do me a favor. You say Sampi? What?
St. Petersburg.
Oh, so it's St. Petersburg Times. It's an article out of St. Petersburg Times. And what's the approximate date? Do you know?
The article came out on February 12th or 13th of 2000. Yeah, it was right after right in 2000.
Okay, so they could go Google that and pull it up at the
Yeah, the title of the article is really cheesy, but it's called "The Exorcist in Love." If you just Google that, you'll land there. Believe me.
The Exorcist in Love.
Don't even go there.
Okay, go ahead. Continue.
But in any event, I later found out that the woman was, and there were things she didn't tell me, which really upset me. She was married to a materials physicist who worked in the underground base, Catoctin Mountain in where is it, Maryland or Fort Detrick, and worked on some very secret government research. And there were some real weird things going on around here. But what happened was, on this very night that I was doing this hypnosis session with her, while she was under hypnosis on the lazy boy recliner in my study, there was this gigantic flying black boomerang hovering over my house that was seen by other neighbors in the area, who reported it to the newspaper, and there were newspaper articles about it that came out 2 days later.
Now, this is in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it was kind of a little mini flap, and it all seemed to focus around the fact that I had this woman who was the wife of a materials physicist that worked at a secret underground base, under hypnosis in my house. It was totally bizarre.
Okay.
So anyway, that kind of catapulted me really headlong into some real deep, weird research. And it was as a result of that I became very familiar with the so-called UFO research crowd, which was the training ground that got me ready for the so-called 9/11 research crowd.
Okay, the UFO research crowd. Now, did you run across Dr. Stephen Greer in that?
Oh, yes,
okay.
and what's his name, Whitley Strieber, and
right.
Lloyd Pye, and Linda Moulton Howe, and I mean, a whole cast of interesting characters.
Okay, go ahead.
And did lots of research in that, and I've got some articles on those subjects on my website, but I don't really focus on that so much anymore, because been there, done that.
Right. Yes.
And it's not. While there are weird things going on this planet, some of the weirder things that are going on are in real life, right there in front of us, and they could get all us killed if we don't do something pretty soon.
And that's the trail that you're taking us down now. Is that correct?
Yeah. This is where we're going to go, because this research that I was doing at that time. That's when people started crawling out of the woodwork. All kinds of really strange people who had really strange behaviors and agendas, and I mean, dog eat dog, and backbiting and backstabbing and hate, and anybody who had anything different to say was immediately attacked. And of course the party line was there are aliens out there and they're here to save us. That's the Stephen Greer line, by the way. And anybody who said, now wait a minute, a so-called abduction, if an abduction is in fact taking place, is a violation of a person's free will. It's a crime. And as it happens, there was a friend of mine who was an ex-Chicago cop, and he'd retired to Florida and opened a private investigation service. And I was talking to him about it one day, and I had a particular case that I was looking at, and he says, well, why don't we just look at this like it's a crime? This person says they were, went somewhere, says they were abducted, says they were, things happened to them, let's investigate it like a crime. And we began to do that. I obtained the clothing that the woman was wearing, which fortunately, she had not done anything with. She hadn't sent it to the cleaners. We put it in plastic bags. We got all kinds of stuff. We got ready to send it to a police lab to have it analyzed, and then all hell broke loose. And, this baffled me to no end. Why all of a sudden were all of these people going crazy because I was going to send a dress that a woman was wearing when she claimed she had been abducted by so-called aliens to a police lab for an analysis. We weren't even going to tell the police lab, what kind of a crime it was being investigated. We were going to call it a rape.
Now, tell me, who exactly was it where all hell broke loose? Was it the police, people in detectives in the police department? Okay.
No, it was the UFO research people.
Really?
I mean, all of a sudden, as soon as word of this leaked out, I was accused of being a government agent. I was going to destroy UFO research. I was going to ruin this woman's life. I was using her as a vehicle to fame and glory. If she knew what was good for her, she would get that dress back. She would demand that I cease and desist investigating her case.
Okay, let me stop you. We got a break, dear. Okay, stick with me. We'll continue that subject when we get back. Michael Herzog, The American Awakening. CN3. Michael Herzog with The American Awakening, coming to you live from Round Rock, Texas, with my special guest, Laura Knight Jadczyk, with a fantastic story she's telling. She's going down a long trail, so you got to stick with us because it's going to get even better. Again, this is a long segment, Laura, so we've got some time to talk here before the next break, so go ahead, continue.
Okay, so anyhow, the whole UFO research so-called community in the area just really kind of went bonkers and started going after me because, basically I'm just saying, hey, let's get down to some real basics here. Nobody needs to believe in alien abductions. Nobody needs to believe in UFOs. Let's investigate this scientifically. Mm-hmm. And it seems that is not what they wanted.
Now, you're talking about the UFO group themselves didn't want you to do this.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
And what was so shocking to me was the kinds of lies that were being told. There was just absolutely no necessity for that. It's like, if somebody doesn't agree with what I'm thinking, somebody doesn't agree with what I'm saying, just say that you disagree, state your own position, but do not go around telling lies about me, and don't attack me, and don't, start calling me and threatening me with death. At the time, I was going around giving some lectures on the subject, what I had been discovering with these various people that came to me for hypnosis, claiming they had been abducted by aliens. Mm-hmm. And what I was finding was, quite a bit different than what, some of the more popular books on the subject were saying. And so I was giving some talks about this, and I actually started getting death threats at this point about my UFO research. And my private investigator friend actually accompanied me to the last lecture I gave. And, as they say, he was packing a weapon or something. It was really funny. And, because he was sitting back there in the corner because somebody had called and threatened to kill me. And there was a group that was meeting over in Orlando at the time that had a fellow named Henry Belk. He was of the Belk-Lindsay fortune family, and he also was a CIA agent. And he was extremely disturbed by what I was saying at a lecture that he attended. So it was, I was getting this whole picture of some kind of a contrived and controlled, almost a disinformation program that had been created and was being run and operated. And anytime anybody came along and just wanted to, just say, let's look at this and let's deal with this scientifically. Let's get some real answers. Let's not promote any belief. That's not what they wanted. They wanted, to believe things. So anyway, so in 1999, I started writing about my experiences with this sort of thing and publishing them on the internet. And it's a series called The Wave. And it's about halfway into it, things started getting ugly again. I started getting, a lot of hate mail. But I just kept on doing what I was doing, and then there were also a lot of people who were saying, wow, this is great stuff, and that it landed on the side of the road, took control of her car. When she pulled off the car, the strange creatures came up to her car. That's the last thing she remembered. And I never could break through. And every time I tried to get her to, to break through, to remember what exactly happened after she saw these beings approaching her car, she would start, groaning and clutching her arms and,
Okay, I've got to stop you there. We got a break here, Laura. Okay,
all right.
Stick with me. We got 3 minutes. We'll be back. This is Michael Herzog, The American Awakening, with my special guest, Laura Knight Jadczyk. Stick with me. We'll be back in 3. republicbroadcasting.org.
But anyhow,
no. Yeah, go ahead. This is
this poor woman was in so much pain every time I approached that subject of what happened to her after she'd stopped her car and these individuals approached it, that I literally had to take her out of hypnosis. And just so anybody...
All right, we're back. Michael Herzog, The American Awakening, coming to you live from Round Rock, Texas. This is a short segment coming up, and I've got my special guest, Laura Knight Jadczyk, who is into a fantastic story. And I'll have you continue. We got about 5 minutes going, and then we have another break, Laura, but go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm trying to jam a whole lot into a short period of time. Who wants to know, I videotaped this session. And when I was later interviewed by the St. Pete Times journalist Tom French, he took the video to watch it, and he had it transcribed, and parts of this particular hypnosis